Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Way Forward Workshop Leader Lunch Break, where we are thrilled to welcome Scott Simon. Scott firmly believes in the power of the individual to create change. Yes, he oversees change daily in his role as a market leader in real estate through North Point Realty, a company that was founded by his father, Bart. But his true power and influence is manifest in his role as founder and CEO of Scare Your Soul. There, he works to find pathways for people to grow and flourish to help them find their best selves. He translated this passion through the power of the pen when he wrote 70,000 thought-filled words over a 7-month period, which debuted this past Monday in the publication of Scare Your Soul. Already, he's appeared on Good Morning America and XM Canada to share his inspirational words. Scott gives back in so many ways. He serves currently on the boards of the Mount Sinai Foundation, Shoes and Clothes for Kids, and the Jewish Federation of Cleveland. He served on numerous other boards over the years. And as he says, these volunteer experiences gifted him beyond measure and gave him the priceless feeling of giving everything I have to help other people. He's been recognized by Crain's as 40 Under 40, received the Janowitz Award for Young Leader of the Year from the Jewish Federation of Cleveland, among other well-deserved recognitions. He is a lifelong Clevelander, and he began his journey with the Leadership Center as a member of the charter class of Bridge Builders, and he continues it today as a proud member of the Leadership Cleveland class of 2023. And you have a few of your fans from 2023 joining you today, Scott. Thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Marianne, thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to be with you. I see so many wonderful smiling faces. I feel like we're a big family. As Marianne mentioned, I was in the charter class of Bridge Builders. I'm now in the current Leadership Cleveland class. So for me, this is like an incredible bookend experience to be here with all of you today. It's a real honor. I'm going to try to do the near impossible. And that is, in the next 10 minutes, I'd like to tell you the story of courage, the story of a book that I wrote that, as Marianne said, came out this week. The story of fear leading to courage. I'd like to give you 5 takeaways for you to bring into your own lives. And at the very end, I'd like to give you 8 words that I hope will transform the way that you live and the way that you lead. So that's a very tall order in 10 minutes, but I'm going to try my best. So first off, I'd like to reinforce what Marianne said, and that is I am a lifelong Clevelander. I grew up in what I would consider to be the most wonderful, most affirming family that I could ever ask for. My dad, Bart, actually now, my mom just joined the Zoom. So both of my parents are here. And that just shows you, what a wonderful support system I had growing up. Just a terrific, terrific family. My dad was in Leadership Cleveland class of 89, which would be the greatest class of all time, except for the class that I'm in right now. So we'll give him second place. That wonderful affirming environment did not translate, however, when I went to school. I was the shortest boy in my grade, very, very shy, and things got very challenging for me when I was bullied in my elementary school days. Bullying is a very, as you know, insidious act because it creates a sense of shame. It creates a sense of not being able to be seen in the world. And so for many years of my childhood, although I had a wonderful home life, school felt scary, it felt unsafe, and I retreated to almost wanting to be invisible. I know it's hard for those people who know me now, when I literally cannot stop talking, to think of me in those days. But back then, my greatest wish really was to be invisible. That all changed for me following college. I received a job opportunity to teach English to elderly Holocaust survivors in Israel. I took that opportunity and got on a plane flying from JFK to Tel Aviv, and I had a panic attack. I thought to myself, how could I ever do this? How could I ever go to another country where I don't know the people, I don't know the language, And in my mind, I was literally figuring out how could I turn around and come back to Cleveland when I landed. And the sweat started to pour. And as the plane lifted off, in the midst of this panic, I pulled out a small Mead spiral notebook. Do you all remember those little Mead spiral notebooks that we all had? And a pen, and I wrote out something on a pad of paper. I will come back to this at the end of my 10 minutes. The phrase that I wrote down changed my life, because what it did was it encouraged me to push comfort zones. For the next year, every single day, I pushed my comfort zone in some way, and I wrote it in that spiral notebook. That year was the best year of my life. It changed everything for me, and being able to adopt an attitude of pushing towards fear, towards discomfort, not away from it, changed my perspective on life. Years later, in a chance encounter with a Harvard professor who teaches the science of happiness. At the time, he had the largest class at Harvard, 1,400 students, really teaching about what makes human beings happy. And I met him and found another epiphany, another opportunity for me to plug into something that I now consider to be my greatest passion, which is what actually makes us happy. And what can we do in our lives to achieve greater happiness for ourselves, for our families? And when we do that, it transforms the environments around us, our workplaces, and I dare say to this group, this CLC group, to our community. When we get happier, when we become more courageous, we're more innovative, we're more giving, we're more charitable, we push boundaries, we connect in ways that impact not just our own lives, but our institutions, our companies, and our community. That experience of meeting this wonderful, wonderful guy encouraged me to push my comfort zones even more than they had before. Now, let me tell you about my last epiphany, and then I'll go into very quickly the takeaways and the words that I want to offer you. In fourth grade, I had a choir teacher get very upset at me. We were preparing for our holiday concert. I don't know if you all remember those choir concerts where your parents would come in and you'd be standing in rows and you got real nervous and dressed up. Well, we were preparing for our choir concert. A song that would be the extravaganza was 76 Trombones from the Music Man. And every time that the choir came around to me, I had one solo line. I flubbed it. I got so nervous and I started to turn red. And each time the choir director, who was a substitute choir director, in his Hawaiian shirt, I remember it like it was yesterday, would stop the entire grade and make everybody start over again. After the third time, he came to me and said, in front of the entire grade, "You can't sing. Don't do it, just mouth the words." That's what I was told in fourth grade. And for 35 years, I did not sing in public until I made the decision, after meeting this wonderful professor and starting to engage in the work of positive psychology and pushing comfort zones, to take that demon off of my back, to grab a guitar and to go to a busy restaurant on a Sunday morning. That restaurant was the Inn on Coventry. Many of you have probably been there or know of it and know what it looks like on a May Sunday morning with a line of people out the front door. I see lots of people nodding. I grabbed that guitar and I went to that plaza right in front of the Inn on Coventry and sang in front of a group of strangers. My sister, who has an amazing voice, came out and joined me to support me. And I assure you, I was awful. Terrible. There was nothing about my performance that was acceptable musically, but the feeling that I had walking away from that was indescribable. Joy, freedom, accomplishment, confidence. I wanted to do it all over again immediately. So for 35 years, I didn't do it. And with one 10-minute courageous act, I shifted my entire perspective. I came back, wrote a Facebook post about it. That post went viral and was shared around the world. And that message of Go and do something, do what you need to do to push yourself into that area of discomfort, has now launched a book, a courage movement, an organic courage movement called Scare Your Soul, which is dedicated to helping people, no matter where they live, no matter what their background is, no matter who they are, who they know, where they went to school, if they went to school at all, to push comfort zones in a way that connects them to the best life they can possibly have. I know I'm running short. Here are my takeaways. I have an entire book full of stories and writing prompts and challenges for you if you're interested. And I'm happy to come speak at companies and organizations about courage and about motivation, but I want to give you something tangible. So just a few things to keep in mind, and then I'm going to give you the 8 words. First is to know that fear will always be with you if you're growing. This whole sense in our society that we should crush fear, conquer fear, annihilate fear, forget it. As we are leading our organizations, our companies, our families, and our own lives, we will always feel fear if we are growing. So getting in touch with fear, dancing with it, harnessing it rather than annihilating it is an empowering concept. I have many examples and prompts and exercises for this in the book, but just thinking of fear not as the enemy, but as a dance partner. Number 2, action is the antidote. When we're feeling apathetic, or people in our lives are, when there is a downward spiral, as Alex Korb wrote in his beautiful book, The Upward Spiral, taking action cannot be undervalued. If we wait, if we procrastinate, if we hold off, that level of spiral starts going down. But when we take action, the momentum starts to shift. 3, it's our values, not our rewards, that drive courageous action. When we look at Nelson Mandela's life and leaving that prison and walking out and saying that he forgave his captors, he courageously forgave his captors, he was doing so not because of an extrinsic reward. He was doing it because of his value of forgiveness. So when we think about how we act in the world, making sure that we're plugging back into those values which are so important in our lives, not what the outcome will be at the end of that. 4, practicing courage is like strengthening a muscle. Just like anybody who wants to run a marathon, you don't run 20 miles your first day out. But if you consistently push comfort zones, that muscle strengthens. We start to see gains. We start to change in our lives. Practice it daily. I often encourage people, it sounds corny, I know, but to put a Post-it note on your mirror in the morning that says, push your comfort zones today, or mine says, scare your soul today. But that really means do one thing that day that is going to push your comfort zone in some way. And finally, the last takeaway is become aware of the opportunities for courage in your own life. We are presented every single day with opportunities to make decisions that are courageous. They may seem tiny, they may seem micro, but we have opportunities every single day. Pay attention to your bodies, where you feel that sense of tightening or butterflies in your stomach as you're about to talk about a new idea, speak to a group, mentor someone that you don't know, call someone who intimidates you, or ask someone to do something that will benefit our community. To push through that fear every single day is critical, and becoming aware of those opportunities is the very beginning. Now, I promised you 8 words. This is what I wrote in my Mead notebook when I was on that plane. Do one thing every day that scares you. It's a phrase that is often attributed to Eleanor Roosevelt, but it is deeply, deeply part of many of our spiritual and theological backgrounds. It's been a concept that has been with us for millennia. But I can tell you, and I can promise you, that if you adopt do one thing every day that scares you as a ritual, just like brushing your teeth, taking a shower, doing the things every single day that have become our rituals. Maybe you have an exercise ritual. Maybe you have a diet ritual. If your ritual becomes pushing a comfort zone every single day, I promise you, on the other side of that is magic, connection, love, growth, accomplishment, innovation. Yes, you will fail. Yes, things won't go the way that you think that they will. But every single day, if you find opportunities to push, I can promise you that your life will be more adventurous, full of awe, full of connection. And all the rest of us, your colleagues, your friends, your coworkers, will be better for it. So thank you all very, very much. I appreciate this now probably 12 minutes. And I'm happy to, Rachel, take any questions that anybody has.
Sure. So let's get started. So how does someone get started to really embrace fear and step out of the comfort zone? This can just feel so overwhelming. And often it's just those first little steps that can get us really going. So what might be some of those first steps you would recommend for someone who feels a little stuck to get started?
Sure. So I think, in Scare Your Soul, we put out a free weekly challenge every single Wednesday. We've done it for years. So we've done hundreds of them. So I think first off, I can make many, many recommendations, but I can tell you one that I think is maybe our classic way to enter this world. And that is to buy a cup of coffee for a stranger. It is one of those things that as many times as we do it, it is almost the epitome of putting yourself into an uncomfortable position. You're entering a moment of the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. It's an act of service where you're serving somebody else. There's a sense of curiosity involved where you don't know this person yet. And I can tell you that we have, again, done this many, many times. And in the book, I tell stories of what has happened when people have bought a cup of coffee for a stranger, including two women who realized that they went to the same grad school. I think this was in California, different years, and now are in business together. That is one of many, many stories. But really, the book tells, gives you hundreds of little examples. One is taking a cold shower in the morning for the last 15 seconds of your shower, taking a cold shower. One is smiling at 5 strangers every single day. Another would be having a tough conversation with somebody that you've kind of been putting off. Maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a significant other. But here I think is the key point. It's not about what you do, because we're all different and we all have different needs and different backgrounds. I would just argue, do it. Find something today, find one thing today that would push you socially, organizationally, in your work world, in your personal world. That will push your comfort zone. And I guarantee you that one act will lead to another and to another and to another. And that's when we start to see tremendous gains.
As we begin on this journey for ourselves, how do we persevere when those around us might not be in the similar mindset? It can be hard to work through negative energy around us.
So great question. I am the biggest fan of accountability support, accountability scaffolding around the work that we do. I oftentimes say, if you're going to be tackling something new, and this is a new ritual, this is a new way of leading life, is to tell a friend about it. Find somebody that you care about and who cares about you, and tell them what you're doing, and ask them to hold you accountable. As some people on this call know, I have had a gratitude partner where we have been sharing 5 gratitudes every single night for 7 years. 7 years, we send a text with 5 gratitudes every single night. It has transformed my life, and I, again, talk about this in the book. But the reason that it works is that she's my accountability partner. If I didn't have Carly, I don't know that I'd write in a gratitude journal alone for 7 years. But because there's somebody who cares about me, who wants me to follow through on my growth avenue, that makes it all possible for me. So I would say, if you're having a hard time getting started and pushing through the negativity of some people in your life, or even just the general sense of being comfortable, there is so much in our lives where we are being pushed to just be comfortable, just to sit and not to push, not to challenge the status quo, not to grow or change the people that are around us by our own level of change. That can be really hard. Find somebody who cares for you and you care for them, and support each other.
What is the most powerful thing you have done in a day that scared you?
That is such a great question. Well, I'm going to answer that in a way that I hope is instructive. I have a fear of heights. Okay. It is, I tend to not talk about things that are in the kind of the area of phobias, because I really want to encourage people to push in areas of their lives that are deeper than just phobias. But I'd like to make a point by saying this. I have skydived. Somebody invited me and I jumped out of a plane at 14,000 feet. That pushed me without a doubt. There's no two ways about it. It was scary and I did it and it was amazing. As if anybody that has done it, it was an incredible experience. But I also had to clean out my gutters in my house, which required me to get on a ladder, an 8-foot ladder, for 4 days in a row to clean out my gutters. I will tell you, I think there is more power in getting on an 8-foot ladder for 4 days in a row than there is jumping out of an airplane. It is about consistent, small acts of courage that move the needle. So I would counsel people to not focus on those big, gaudy actions, quitting your job and moving to another city, or God forbid, move out of Cleveland. We don't want that. But it's not the big acts. It's not those major things that we do. It is the small, consistent acts that move the needle.
What led you to find the courage to write the book and put this out there?
Great question. So I actually didn't have the courage to write it. I'm going to be 100% honest. I one day received an email from a publisher, the second largest in the entire world, which is just beyond shocking, who asked me if I would write a book. She had found my Scare Your Soul website, which I encourage all of you to visit, and please sign up and join, and we'll send you our free emails and our free challenges. And I thought it was spam, so I deleted the email. About 3 days later, I thought to myself, I think I should figure out what that was. And I retrieved it from my trash folder and looked at it, and I really had a choice. Should I follow through on this and thrust myself into what is maybe one of the scariest things in the entire world, which is writing a book? And I chose to say yes. I emailed her back, which led to phone calls, which led to hiring an agent, negotiating a book deal. And as Marianne said, over a short 7-month period, which is all that Hachette gave me, writing 70,000 words. So this was an opportunity where it was handed to me. I had a choice of whether to say yes or no, and I couldn't be happier that I pushed myself, said yes, and I walked into Barnes & Noble on Monday afternoon and saw the book on the shelf at Barnes & Noble. So saying yes to those things that scare us, even if they seem extraordinarily hard in the moment, unlocks untapped opportunity for all of us.
So reflecting on that process of writing this, what was the hardest part for you?
Can I say every day? Every single, I think all of you have read what writers say about writing. And I think that it is absolutely true. Confronting that blinking cursor every morning where you have to write, you have to write, you have deadlines to hit. And that was terrifying. But I will tell you, I think the hardest part for me was the imposter syndrome, that feeling that I was writing something that was going to end up in Barnes & Noble, and the hope that I could write something meaningful enough that somebody could buy it on Amazon or buy it from that Barnes & Noble or MaxPax or Loganberry and actually feel like it impacted their life, that it changed them in some way. And that was a huge, tall order from the shortest, shyest kid at Orange schools. And I didn't know that I could do it. And I had to push through. So I think that feeling of, could I ever do something that would be valuable enough to other people, was my biggest challenge.
So reflecting on the story about your choir experience back in 4th grade, how would you recommend children put these practices into place, or adults, parents working with kids, be able to use some of these ideas?
So you've just focused on what I think is my next book. If I'm lucky enough to write a book, I think that helping children and teens through those years is critically important. And I don't want to presume to be an expert in the area of child development, but what I will say is, and I have gotten so many emails over the past couple of days from people who are starting to read the book and their parents, and they have gone through struggles themselves, is to understand that our greatest struggles end up being the fuel for us later in life. That for kids who are going through hard times, and I have a daughter right now who's going through a very challenging time, that we can't solve challenges and problems for our children. And oftentimes they have to go through the unfortunate struggles that they have to go through. But what I do firmly believe is when we have struggles, we end up more empathetic. And empathy and courage, when you combine those two things, you have a superpower. Courage and empathy combined, you can do anything, because courage allows us to push through and achieve, but empathy connects us with other human beings. So I firmly believe that yes, it's hard. Yes, it's challenging. And yes, I believe that every kid every day can also do one thing that scares them. And if they adopt that mentality, not to run away from what could be uncomfortable, but to allow it in and to say, you know what, I don't care what other kids are going to say about me on social media. I'm going to put out this new idea or start this little nonprofit or ask somebody to the homecoming dance, and to feel like, you know what, I did it because it was scary and it was hard, is a beautiful thing. And as parents and grandparents, we should embrace that.
How do the principles and practices in Scare Your Soul intersect with your work on happiness? Are there commonalities in these areas?
Not only are there commonalities, I think one leads to the other. I firmly believe, and Maya Angelou has a great quote where she talks about courage as being the greatest virtue, because everything else rests on courage. Nothing else can happen unless we're brave enough to push into that place of life. So when we talk about what makes us happy, strong social connections, strong and vibrant physical and mind-body connection, a sense of forgiveness, a sense of gratitude, all of those things that if you enter the field of positive psychology, and I see my good friend George on the screen, and we were just talking about positive psychology. I encourage everybody just to Google positive psychology and watch a couple TED Talks from Tal Ben-Shahar or Sean Achor or Marty Seligman. What makes us happy requires us to be courageous to get there. It requires courage to be vulnerable. And vulnerability leads to strong social connections. It requires courage to get to the gym in the morning when we just want to stay in bed, but strong physical bodies make us happier. It takes courage to walk into places where we're uncomfortable and give and serve and volunteer, but we know that being charitable and being giving makes us happier. So it's my view that if we're doing something every single day that pushes our comfort zones, we're going to be happier at the end of the day. And if you go back to the basis of all of our spiritual and religious traditions, that's what at the end of the day, I think is what is most important. Being happy, being fulfilled, serving, giving, and really leading the lives that we are all destined to lead. What could be a better mandate than that?
All right, Scott, we have time for one more question. So as you look ahead, what's next for you and Scare Your Soul?
Honestly, I love sharing this message. I feel so empowered in talking to groups and companies. I think the book hopefully will allow me the platform to share this more. But to me, it's really about sharing this story and this methodology with others to create movement in their lives. I love sharing my own stories, but what I really love is to hear what happens when people start employing these strategies. I've shared the story before where one of our ambassadors has a Scare Your Soul baby, which means she took one of our challenges, which was having a tough conversation. That tough conversation led to a separation and a divorce from her then husband. She reconnected with her high school boyfriend. They got married, and now she has what she calls her Scare Your Soul baby. So if I could have more opportunities to have conversations like that with people around the world, that would be a great life.
Well, Scott, we are so thankful for your time today and encourage everyone to follow up. I will be sure to share the website in our follow-up email. And please reach out to Scott, learn more about the book, and we look forward to all that's to come. So Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott. We're hoping everyone on this call will embrace and really try something that will scare them between now and the end of the year, personal challenge. So thank you for your great, great work.